thanks to all the other speakers today. Those talks have been wonderful. I think Anya and I are now going to do a summing up, if we can.
Also, if there's any questions, I'm completely abusing my position here. If there's any questions to other speakers, if you've now thought of them, and if I could ask my question of Garth, if he's still there.
You can ask Garth's question. Garth?
I'm here. Am I here? Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Yes. Yes.
Drifting into tomorrow's discussion a little more, I want to go back to sausage, cladium fen, or swamp as I would call it. Do you see that as a threat to some of the species persistence in the Burren, given how many of them are associated with exposed habitats or niches? So I suppose what I'm thinking, what concerns me is that cladium may be expanding because of lack of grazing of wetter areas, and that would concern me slightly.
Yeah, Anya, are you asking me that?
I am asking you that.
I love cladium. I travelled thousands of miles looking for cladium fen. Yeah, bring it on. It's great stuff. I mean, it's also good for feeding horses. Yeah.
If I could interject there, having seen cladium fen in the Norfolk Broads before I understood what cladium fen in Ireland was, I think they are two very different beasts. Cladium fen in Ireland is a monodominant, a bit like the hazel scrub. To me, is a monodominant thing. You go in and take your life in your hands going through that stuff. If it was grazed and cut as in the Norfolk Broads had been, then I think we might be talking about a different beast. But in Ireland, I think it is, to me, it is a monodominant thing. It's very hard to survey in for a start. Tom showed a picture of Loch Una, and I have tried to get into Loch Una, and I gave up. It is, and it's not something to do on your own either, but I did try. And I think that is part of the problem, is the fen that we are talking about in Ireland the same? I don't think it is as in the Norfolk Broads. Do you want to comment on that, Garth? Or?
Well, I mean, cladium occurs in Scotland in a few fens, north to about Oban, I think, where it's vegetative. You don't very rarely see seed. Well, I never used to see seed heads up there. And I mean, I like it because it generates so much mushy litter. You know, it produces a good substratum. But certainly, I agree with you. I mean, in Scotland, it doesn't. It's disappointing. It doesn't produce the same fauna that we get in the cut over. I have to be careful what I say. No, I don't mean cut over. You know what I mean? The fens that are cut in the Norfolk Broads for thatch.
Yeah.
Those are very special, I think, to Norfolk. So I don't think it's particularly special once it's out of that area. No. Am I backtracking enough for you?
You're lovely.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes, I think. So.
Any other questions from the floor or online? Can I just? I think this will be one of the conclusions, obviously, of today. I think we've done an amazing job in actually sharing the information on what we know and showcasing incredible fauna, invertebrate fauna. So, I mean, thank you to all the speakers, firstly, for doing exactly what I wanted and hoped for. But I suppose a question to all of you, where does the work need to be done? And I think looking at what you've all presented, obviously we need greater temporal recording, greater spatial recording. There's lots of cryptic groups that we need to start getting into. Anybody got a top 2 list of what they would like to see?
DNA.
Focusing on. Garth is DNA. Dave, you're wandering around. What's your top 2?
I'd like to go and spend some time around the Turlochs and just like to look at big thickets of Ramnus and Burnet Rose. Not too difficult to request in the Burren. But what I'm looking for on it might be much more difficult.
Desmond, any thoughts?
I think I'd like to see the conservation priorities in the Burren reviewed. I do think scrub is very, very important. Not too much of it, not single species cover, for example, the hazel scrub that was referred to earlier. But those little mosaics, I think it's very, very important to maintain those, to maintain species diversity, and to maintain them even for a single species that will use different parts of a habitat or an area of habitats in its life cycle. So the management of the burn is really key for me. That would be my big priority.
And I think one of the important points is to think of it at the scale that the invertebrate is using it at. So that heterogeneity may need to be over a few meters squared, effectively, to create all of the niches needed.
Yes, that's true. And I mean, for example, just looking at the pearl-bordered fritillary larvae in spring, they actually use latrines. They move away from the food plant and they settle on an open area, so sometimes a bed of moss, to digest the food and use it as a toileting area, essentially, and they migrate back to the food plant to feed. So even on that scale, you will see, and so they're moving from an area right up against scrub into an open area. So even on that scale, those kind of habitat mosaics and the maintenance of them is really, really important.
And I'm just, again, abusing my privilege and going back to the question I asked Garth. That heterogeneity, I think, is needed hugely in wetlands as well. So for some of those species like Athebius nilssoni that rely on Krustenstein or charophyte species, they require open conditions in the water. So shading, even by something like Cladium or Phragmites, can knock those out, while being important for other groups. So you need that mix.
Sorry, I misinterpreted the question. In terms of what I was looking to say, what I'd like to say in terms of the Burren, really, in terms of the moths, is more specific species studies on the, some of the more iconic species. It was great to do the work a few years ago on the Irish annulet, but there's a lot to know even about the Burren green, which is the classic moth of the Burren. And we really still don't know a huge amount about it, or its proper distribution.
Sorry, we just had a lepidopteran fly in. But no, I think that's really important, probably for all groups, that we need that autoecological study as well to know more about what individual species need. Tom, I'm coming towards you.
Well, I suppose, as I say in my talk, really, I think we don't know. While we know we have a kind of species list for the calcareous grass and limestone pavement habitat for the hoverflies, or we have really anecdotal observations in terms of the habitat requirements and things like how important is hazel scrub versus how important are open areas. There's something like Paragus constrictus or Chiosahenia. They're described as being associated with very open bare areas. Actually study a few sites intensively to find out what are the habitat requirements of these Burren specialities.
I don't know if Adam is still online. I think so. I'll hand it back to Brian for your comments and thoughts.
I've got this, haven't I? I thought all the talks this morning from all the other contributions were absolutely brilliant. I'm not saying we had an agenda. They were asked to give a talk, and they've all come up with the same message as I see it, is that the importance of the burn is that heterogeneity of habitat, the closeness of those habitats to do, and that's why I like that Ballyogan site. Adam showed a picture of it. You have this weird, as the bottom to say, this weird mixture, because you have willow scrub, you have wet fen, you have limestone pavement, but the fauna needs that very close relationship of habitats, as Jesmond said, for even the species, but also communities within that. So I think what the sort of work we need is to focus on certain key groups and maybe do a biochange type project over a wider area of the Burren. I think the Eastern Burren is the important area for invertebrates, because the West is very, very exposed. It's very wet, very windy, and insects don't like that. Climate change may change that, but it's also higher as well. So the Eastern Burren benefits from that natural shelter that is afforded by the Western Highlands, and it has the wetlands. And I think that has come out of all the talks. Okay, there is a bias of recording, and people, yes, go to the areas that are nice, but that's only come apparent in the last 20 years because people have actually been recording there. It still is a natural feature. So there are some bits of work that were done in the 60s. There was a bit of work done by Mike Morris who looked at the leafhoppers and froghoppers of grasslands. That would be a bit of work that I think would be very valuable to redo again in the context of the grassland managements. We'll hear tomorrow from Ria about the snails, but this is an insect group. And that sort of study that's been done in the past in the Burren, I think, should be repeated to see are those results still valid. And Mike Morris did make some general observations on management, but continuity of studies like that repeat work that was done. So Tom's biochange, I mean, presumably biochange was to give some indication of looking at change. So by implication, it should be redone again. So yeah. So Anya was trying to say something to me. I can't remember what it was. Where I got to in the thing. Anyway. Repeat studies, yes. Repeat, and also tying them into management. I mean, we have a lot of the talks have stressed the importance of scrub, and some studies to show that I think would be very, very valuable. Okay. Did I actually ask Garth? Did you actually ask Garth? Well, you started out with Garth's question, but do you want to ask him? He said DNA. He said DNA. And,
I want an expenses paid trip to Lake Garda.
Which Ryanair airport is that near? Okay, so just want to reiterate, I know Adam's not here, but thanks very much for all those speakers. Thank you for taking your time to take part in the conference, especially those who have been online. I know you did a lot of preparatory work beforehand. So from my point of view, I'd like to thank you all for those talks. So we're going to end now, if Anya